Alright folks, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a minute, but a lot's gone on, but we're back now with some more Pro-Am doubles disc reviews where I will serve as the amateur and my friend Matt Gibbons here will serve as our pro. Which, speaking of which, I think some congrats are in order. Since the last time we filmed the review, you picked up a new sponsor. So now part of Team Finish Line.
Correct.
So pretty cool to see that. Also top 10 singles collegiate disc golf.
The Southeastern Collegiate Open was this past weekend. Got top 10. We got rained out the last round, so didn't get a chance to really take it down, but you know.
Anyway, definitely a guy who, as you've seen on the channel before, who packs a huge amount of power and will definitely be able to give you what it looks like to throw at a higher arm speed, whereas I'll kind of be, I guess, the layman, so to speak, so you can see kind of how maybe a lower level am will throw these discs. But without further ado, let's jump into our partner who helps make all this content possible. I'm sure you're surprised a pharmacy sponsored this video, but Saraland Pharmacy is actually the best disc golf store in Southern Alabama. They carry a wide variety of discs from all the top manufacturers, including Innova, Discraft, Discmania, and all the Trilogy brands, as well as MVP and Axiom. They also carry plenty of plastic from lesser-known brands, such as Lone Star Disc and Thought Space Athletics. Their pricing is fantastic. And speaking of pricing, they have a very robust used disc section where you can get some lightly used plastic for a fantastic price, and you can also pick up various disc golf equipment that'll help you along the way. So if you're in Mobile County or any of the surrounding areas, or heck, even if you're on the Eastern Shore, definitely pass on by the Saraland Pharmacy, as they have a wide variety of equipment that I'm sure you'll love. It's definitely worth the trip. You certainly won't regret it. All right, so now that we're back from that message, Mac, what are we throwing today?
We're going to be throwing the S-Line FD from Discmania. Comes in at a 7601, so looking like a pretty true, neutrally straight flying fairway driver.
Yeah, so obviously Discmania has started manufacturing their own disc after ending their partnership with Innova, although they are very closely associated to Latitude 64, and it's kind of hard not to notice the plastic similarities there. But obviously the C-Line FD was kind of one of the first discs that they came back with, and now finally we're starting to see them come out with stock S-Line plastic. And so basically we're going to be throwing a couple of different FDs here to show you some differences. I also have a Gold Line and an Opto Line Explorer, so we'll kind of be able to see some comparisons there as well. And yeah, let's get throwing. Alright, so basically what I'm going to do is I have an Opto X Explorer and I also have a Gold Line Explorer, so two 7-speeds from Latitude that are somewhat similar to the FD. And again, there's also kind of some exchanging of plastic being used, I think, here between these companies nowadays. And then I also have the FD in both C-Line and S-Line to try to kind of compare a little bit. So we're going to start off with the more overstable versions. So this is the first FD that came out, the C-Line FD. I'm going to throw this and compare it to the Opto X Explorer. And then we'll look at the other Explorer and then a couple of S-Line FDs. So I'll go with this Explorer first. We are dealing with the right to left crosswind, so kind of factor that into what you see. Released that on a touch of hyzer, and with the right to left wind kind of exaggerated it, but that is the more stable version of Explorer that I expect to have a little bit more finish, and I kind of expect the same from the C-Line FD. So I threw that one a little lower, but it went a little further, and they landed at about the same kind of distance from each other, so pretty similar. So now I'm going to throw a little bit of slightly seasoned Gold Line Explorer, and then I'm going to throw the two S-Line FDs and try to keep them kind of flat. Again, this right to left wind will probably start pushing them over though. So as you can see, even with the right to left wind, that was less stable, had a lot more forward penetration, and had a lot less fade, but still had a little bit at the end. I imagine these will fly pretty similar. S-Line FD. So as you can see, that FD got a little bit of turn, but flew mostly straight. So kind of what I expected from that disc. All right, so for the more stable versions of each disc, so the C-Line FD as well as the Opto-X Explorer, these were both around the 275 to 280 region. And then the Goldline Explorer as well as the S-Line FD were within about 5 feet of each other, almost in line with each other as well, and they went about 315 feet. Again, these flew a lot straighter when you consider the fact that we are dealing with the right to left crosswind, so we were always going to get a little bit more fade than normal because of that. But again, the S-Line plastic, you know, if you're looking for an FD and you felt like the C-Line was maybe a little bit too stable, the S-Line's definitely going to fly a little bit straighter out the box, has a really good feel to it. Definitely reminds me a lot of the Goldline Explorer. Definitely just a nice, solid 7-speed fairway driver. For AMs, I think it's perfect. But well, let's see what Pro can do with it.
All right, so I'm gonna keep the same order as Dustin. I'm gonna go with the Opto-X Explorer first. So I'm gonna hit it, you know, pretty standard power, what I would throw on the course most often. Try and throw it flat, see what it does. Now I'm gonna hit the C-Line FD a little bit harder. Extra speed, you could definitely see the extra turn coming out of it, but still with a reliable finish. So let's compare that to first the Explorer and then the two S-Line FDs. We're gonna hit this with that 60 to 70% power I threw the Explorer with first.
All right, that's my pride and joy right there. So I need you to treat it with respect. Okay, the disc has been with me for a while. You did it justice, thank you.
Definitely has a little bit more flip up. Gave that a little bit more hyzer than normal. So let's see how it compares to the FD. I'm gonna do the same thing. Hit one flat, neutral, and then I'm gonna hit the other one harder. It kind of came out at the end. I'm gonna get the ranges and we'll see what it compares. Alright, so went and ranged those. The first Explorer I threw went out to about 390, whereas the FD I threw a little, or right after, a little bit harder. Actually got out to 430. And then the softer plastic Explorer came out to around 370. I think this one just had a little bit more nose up than the other one, so take that what you will. Also, like we mentioned, the right to left's going to push a little bit more distance on the end of flight, so maybe a little bit more distance than you would normally expect in calm conditions coming out of these. And then for the S-Line FDs, the one I hit normally was right at 400, and the one I got into was also around 430. So what this tells us is the S-Line FDs definitely have a little bit less stability. I think are a little bit less torque resistant, so they're a lot more finessey when it comes into winds, but you may have bigger distance potential. Though I think you're going to more often get a longer flight out of the C-Line FD as long as you have the arm speed for it. Yeah, let's go into our final thoughts so we can go more into it.
All right, so now we're going to get into our final thoughts of the S-Line FD. So for me, as an amateur and with my arm speed, I feel like this is one of the straightest flying fairway drivers on the market right now. Seriously. Like, it has such little lateral movement when I throw it in calm conditions, and it pretty much rides it on any angle that I put it on. It just wants to go straight, basically. And this went straight into my bag whenever I first got it, and I've been using it a lot in the woods in particular when I'm trying to hit accurate tunnel shots. I can put on a touch of hyzer, know it's going to flip up the flat, maybe ride right just a touch, but not enough to give me like any concern, and then it'll just kind of pan out and settle, and I can get, you know, that little over 300 feet worth of distance on it. So really great disc for that. I will say, as you already kind of alluded to, in the wind, it loses a bit of integrity in the S-Line plastic. It'll tend to roll over a little bit more and maybe not be exactly what you want to trust into, but that's where the C-Line FD can maybe be a little bit more of a compliment, or just a slightly more overstable fairway driver. But honestly, I love the way this feels. I love how it flies, and I think that Discmania really knocked it out the park with this FD, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree, especially on the plastic front. I think the best thing that this has going for it is the way the plastic feels. Super solid, feels great in the hands, got the right amount of tack. That Italian plastic doing well, but yeah, definitely a little bit less stable, like I said, from the C-Line. For the amateur players, that's probably a good thing. For the professional players or the higher arm speed players, I think it just does something a little bit different. If you need a disc that you can hold annies with a little bit better, or just go dead straight through tunnel shots, I think this is something that you can fit into your bag pretty easily, and the low speed kind of helps with controllability. If you're thinking about forehanding it, I would say I would only do it if you have a good amount of touch, just because of that wider rim makes it a little harder, and also, like we said, the angle integrity is not entirely there compared to the more premium plastics. But other than that, yeah, great disc. I'd recommend it for anyone, really any level of player. For beginners, it'd probably be a pretty stable disc, but something you could still work with.
Yeah, I think that's really the best way to sum it up. I think the lower you get in level, the more stable this disc becomes, but it's still something that could be useful to you at a lower level, even if it does fly a bit stable for you. And I think once you get to like kind of an intermediate arm speed, it becomes pretty much a dead straight flyer, or as straight as you're gonna get. And then as you move up the chain in arm speed and level of play, it's gonna become more and more understable, more and more of a hyzer flip disc, or more and more of even a turnover or roller disc maybe for someone at like a super high level if you want a low speed backhand roller disc. So definitely can fit a lot of different roles depending on what level of player you are. And so honestly, this has been one of my favorite discs that we've reviewed so far. Shout out to Discmania for knocking this one out the park. I know they also brought the DD3 and the PD out in S-Line plastic, and those fly a bit straighter in comparison to their counterparts from the past. So that's something else you can look into. But that's going to do it for this review. Hope you enjoyed it.